delighted to welcome onto the programme again Professor of Cybersecurity at Ulster University, Professor Kevin Curran. Good morning to you, Kevin. Good to have you on with us. How are you keeping?
Good morning, Greg.
Right, now.
Fine, good.
Excellent stuff. A huge outage yesterday. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp gone. I think Vodafone and Air, some of their services rely on this network. On a huge scale, this, Kevin.
It was indeed. I mean, 6 hours for Facebook to go down. We're talking about 3.5 billion people. You know, the majority of the planet are using Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, or Messenger. Again, so for a lot of people, of course, they have businesses on Facebook, you know, and there's a certain, obviously, type of person who just does all their media on there, like my mother, for instance, you know. So for some people, it was upsetting in that regard, but it was also commercially upsetting for some people as well. But of course, you know, my immediate gut feeling was, when I first read about this, was it was configuration error. And I went to bed and slept soundly, and I woke up this morning, and indeed it was a configuration error.
And what does that mean in layman's terms, Kevin, as much as can be?
Yeah, okay. So networks are incredibly complex. You know, the internet, people don't really think about it, but it's made up of about 100,000 individual autonomous networks, as we call them. And Facebook has its own autonomous system network again. It's autonomous system, sorry. And, you know, this consists of, you know, hundreds of thousands of computers that they have. But somewhere a configuration error was set into their border gateway protocol. You know, that routes the packets from one to the other. Because if you think about it, how do your packets, when you type in www.highlandradio.com, how does your packets get there? Because computers do not understand highlandradio.com. They understand what is 192.12, whatever. They understand numbers. And of course, the numbers, the Highland Radio translates to a number for it to get routed. But if that number, the DNS system, something is wrong in the configuration, which happened in Facebook's instance, they wiped themselves from the routing protocol for the internet. Well, then nothing can get anywhere. Nothing can get traced across the network. Nothing can get forwarded again. All these systems are working, you know, in the background for us. I mean, there is what we call background radiation traffic on the internet, something you never thought about. But these are all viruses and worms which are constantly probing for systems. And what they're doing is using up bandwidth. And those packets will probably circulate forever from these machines. And again, even about 5%, as a rule of thumb, 5% of the traffic on the internet is management traffic, and is to do with routing protocols, exchanging information, saying, here's my route. My route's down now. Here's how fast it is from A to B. Update your table. Here's a faster route. Here's a breakdown here. Avoid this route. All this is happening in the background, oblivious to most people. But it all requires, you know, very precise configuration switches, numbers put into routers and everything else. And if you get that wrong, you can mess up just like we've seen here.
Now, you know, some of us are always looking for connections and reasons. I mean, on a local level, there's a lot of talk about data centers and the drawing of the power and the water. And then we had a Facebook whistleblower due to testify before the US Congress about how, you know, Facebook makes money out of bad news and conspiracy theories and all that type of stuff. All coincidental. That's all. That's none of that is related to what actually happened here, is it?
No, there's absolutely no relationship. I mean, Facebook is always in the news. So is Google and the others. But Facebook is always in the news. This was just an engineer. And also, I think COVID added to this, because a lot of the people are working remotely from home, and you can manage a lot of systems remotely. But if a configuration misstep is put in, then you're locked out remotely. And of course, then people were trying to get to this data center. You know, they might have to travel for hours there. And then, of course, we found out that a lot of the cards weren't working. And data centers as well are highly secure. You just cannot walk into them. You know, I've had the luxury of walking into many data centers, and, you know, I could actually touch the Interpol computers and everything else. And you can imagine why data centers have to be highly sensitive and, you know, and restrict access to people. So that could have all been part of it, because, you know, 6 hours, you know, seems like a long time, but actually when humans are involved in the loop, you know, I mean, there could have been, you know, really just people locked out, just trying to get in there because of a configuration error. And of course, we've seen the knock-on effect. What's happened? Yeah,
and I presume it was also a coincidence, but, you know, a lot of people that use smart technology the night before, I think it was 2A Smart or Smart Life or whatever, it had problems, and people were having difficulties linking, you know, their Google Homes or their Alexa machines and what have you to their smart equipment in their homes. Completely unrelated, I presume, but presumably something similar happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of systems, even like Oculus, like the VR virtual reality headset, for instance, people couldn't log in because that's connected to Facebook. But again, it's kind of a warning for people, because a lot of people now building their houses are building in high technology where it's all controlled by an iPad and lights and everything else. But they've really got to think in the future, what happens when configuration errors happen? What happens when the people who supply the iPad, supply the servers and all your lighting system go bust? Who's going to come along and fix it for you? What happens when servers go down and configuration errors happen? You don't have any lights, you don't have any heating again. So, I would be reluctant to move to a fully smart house, believe me, because I'm amazed actually the internet works mostly, because I know these things. I mean,
what do you believe just as he said that?
Mistake.
Sorry, just as he said that, we froze here, but go on anyway. Sorry, Professor, go on.
I tell you what, every single computer geek going to work today was thinking, no, how did this happen? It's like, my God, how does this not happen more often? Because we know the complexity involved in computer networks.
I mean, obviously, as you said, Facebook's in the news at the moment. I don't even know how much we're going to have this constant merry-go-round. Facebook is hugely powerful. It has its own way of doing things in the background to make its money. It's incredibly secretive. We get a whistleblower comes out. Nothing really comes of it. But anyway, maybe you see more in it than I do, or is it worth talking about at all, this whistleblower and what she has to say?
But we knew we know the research. We know it can harm some kids, but I don't believe they're evil. If you've got a problem with it, don't use the damn thing. Stop it. But what are you doing? You're just posting stuff. If all my Facebook data was leaked tomorrow, even my messages, I wouldn't give a damn. I've said nothing to my friends and my messages, even if some of them are, whatever, they're, whatever, like with girls and everything else. No, I have no shame there, and so what, everything I post is public and whatever else. So stuff it, it's not like my it's not like my bank documents or whatever else, so, of course there is, but Facebook, if it wasn't Facebook, there'd be someone else we'd be using. The reason we're all on Facebook is because most of the population is there, the network effect. There's other social media groups or sites that came along and tried to do it, but of course they're in the business of advertising, they will do stuff, but they're not ruthless either. And regulation is what we need. And of course we'll regulate them over time. And they've made mistakes in the past, and they haven't been transparent about some things, but at the end of the day, they're not the evil corp that some people think they are. Just
one quick question, just as it relates to data storage, right? Like even us, we upload only on this program alone, 15 hours of HD, then I upload clips, and that's just me, and then the pictures being stored. Like, is there, what is the end game here with how long all this information is stored in terms of our capacity to do so and how we do it? I'm thinking of the amount of video YouTube has stored and the photos and that, all that kind of stuff. That physically has to be stored somewhere, doesn't it? I mean, is there a capacity? Where does it all end? At what stage do they start purging? Or
exactly. Well, you're right. I was asked a question once: what happens if we run out of hard disk capacity? But again, we have options there. We could go back and start using old disks and whatever else. But I don't think we ever will. But of course, you can always delete everything you've uploaded to any social media.
But I'm on about them. Right. Yeah, but I'm on about them. Okay, I'm not about security. Yeah. I'm on about literally storing all this stuff for us to access at will.
I know, it's incredible, but we always have the capacity. We seem to be, now there's a chip shortage in the world at the moment, in case, so a lot of gamers are spending thousands or, a lot more on their gaming PCs and everything else. And we have a supply chain problem because of COVID and because of other things as well. So we could see limitations, but what will happen in the end is just hard disks become more expensive. And then it might be the likes of Google and Microsoft and Facebook. These ones for people who are able to afford the storage, but I don't see us ever running out of storage. We always seem to cope.
Yeah, it's remarkable though. Too. Listen, brilliant to have you on as always, and the data centers kept us online for that conversation, so that's good news too. Thanks, Professor.
You're welcome, Greg.
All right, take care of yourself.